All right, here it is, 395,052 miles. Hey guys, it's Russell back, and on today's video, today is October the 4th, 2020, and I want to give you my reflections and give you a little story here about the Jetta, about what it's been like to live with it for the last 22 years. And yesterday and today and tomorrow are really kind of a bittersweet day. The Jetta is going to, and the Mercedes are going to a new owner. And this is not, you know, I've had this car for 22 years, and it's hard to actually really to let it go. But I am trying to move, and I'm not going to be able to take these two cars with me. So I have been trying to sell this for not too awfully long, but I have had about 10 people that wanted to buy the car over the past couple of months, and basically I wouldn't sell it to them. I wanted this car to go to somebody that, number one's a VW enthusiast, number two has some mechanical skills, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty when something does break or go wrong with it, and really wants a nice classic A3 body style TDI, and not somebody that just wanted a car that gets 55 miles a gallon on the highway. So it took me a while, but I finally found somebody that I'm very confident, and I'm very happy that they're going to be taking the Jetta into the next 400,000 miles, hopefully. So yeah. Yeah, I kind of don't know. It's kind of weird. You know, I don't really want to sell it, but I don't really have a choice right now in my life, and I want to make sure that the car is taken care of. So anyway, I wanted to kind of give you my thoughts about what it's been like, and just give you the backstory. I don't know if I've ever, you guys have watched a lot of videos, don't know if I've ever told the whole story of the Jetta, but in January 31st, 1998, I walked into one of my local Volkswagen dealerships with the intention of looking at a 98 Jetta Tdi. They had 3 of them on the lot. 2 of them were, let's see, there was a red one and I believe a green one. They had the GLS trim on it, which means they had the sunroof, the alloy wheels, and the power windows. And there was this white one, and I wanted one that did not have the GLS trim on it. I like manual windows, and didn't want a sunroof. So this is the one I bought. It had 50 miles on it. They gave it to me with a full tank of diesel. Back then, we had the wonderful high sulfur diesel fuel, and boy, you romped on a diesel back then, and it would put out a nice nice cloud of smoke. This one not so much, because it had a catalytic converter on it. But anyway, so I drove that car, and I'm going to tell you guys something. I've owned about 50 different vehicles in my life so far, and from the day that I got in this car to drive it home until yesterday, basically, was the last time I drove it. This car has put a smile on my face. It's just, I've never had a car that I enjoyed driving so much. Everything about this car appeals to me, from the firmness of the seat. The German seats are really firm. It kind of sits up a little higher than, say, a Civic or another subcompact car. I guess this was called subcompact back then, compact. It's just the visibility is very good in here, and the way the German suspension is, it's just very pleasing to drive. And I oftentimes will just roll the window down and listen to the diesel engine as I drive. So, but yeah, this car has never failed to put a smile on my face when I'm driving it. And I have been in snowstorms. I've driven to Key West twice in it, and it's done phenomenal. It's been the best car I've ever owned. Not just because I like driving it, because it's been so reliable. Their when I bought the car, I had the intention of going at least 500,000 miles on it myself. Now, I have no doubt that the next owner will be able to reach that milestone. The 500,000 mark on it is only 105,000 miles away, and I have full confidence that he'll be able to do that with the car. And so the first 2 oil changes I got, they were part of the Volkswagen little thing that you got back then when you bought the car, and I got those for free. And then after that, I started doing my own maintenance, my own oil changes, and that's when I swapped to the AMSOIL heavy duty diesel and marine oil, the 15W40, and I ran that several 100,000 miles. I ran it for about 20 years, and I switched over to the AMSOIL Series 3000 5W30 just to see if I could eke out a little bit more miles per gallon. And it's fun. It's a very, very robust oil. It's very good. I can't really, it does, maybe I get another mile a gallon difference, but it's an awesome oil, very good oil. I swapped the transmission and swap the transmission over to the AMSOIL 75W90 gear oil, and that made a huge difference in the smoothness of shifting the car. I didn't think it would make a difference, but it really did. It made a very good difference. I was very pleased with it. So basically, I'm going to just kind of show you the options that it has. It's got this radio was replaced. This is the second factory radio. The air still blows out. I'm going to leave this thermometer in here for the next owner. The air will blow out when you got it on recirculate, and fan speed 1 or 2, it'll blow out 28 degrees out of the vent, and has done so its whole life. This is a replacement boot. The original boot was like a rubber type boot, which Volkswagen doesn't make anymore. I installed these Wetacoli seat covers on here, and these are phenomenal. The first 2 sets of seat covers I basically wore out. There was a company local here that they made them, and they had the giant VW logo on the back. So they Volkswagen, they got in trouble with Volkswagen for making them because they said they couldn't use their logo. But yeah, so one time the latch broke, and it's weird because Volkswagen could not get the original latch matched this. It was more of a brown. This is more of a tan, which it matches the interior panels and stuff, but that's been on there for like 20 years. Scan gauge, I put this scan gauge on here probably 18 years ago, and I have it set up right now to monitor things like RPM and water temperature, miles per gallon, things like that. Of course, it's got the crank windows. And you know what? I'm going to show you guys. I did not know this car had this. I've had this for this long. I did not know that there was a pop-out cup holder here. This has never been opened. I opened it yesterday. I was like, obviously I don't sit back here. The seats are absolutely pristine under here, as are the back. But I think I had the car for maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks before I got the first set of seat covers. Just absolutely phenomenal. I got the windows tinted. This is 35%. I got that tinted back, I think it was 1999. No, I think it was 98. But anyway, the steering wheel, I got big hands, and the steering wheel cover, I put this on just to make it a little thicker. This is the rubber steering wheel, and if you got the GLS, I believe you got a leather wrap steering wheel. But yeah, this is a pretty basic car, and this has been an awesome car. And I want to show you guys under the hood what is still stock on this car, and you're probably gonna say, well, that's no way, but I'm gonna tell you how I was able to keep almost everything under and on this car stock, and I'm gonna be right back. All right, so the alternator is the factory original alternator. I replaced the voltage regulator in there one time. The power steering pump is the original power steering pump. The air conditioning compressor is the original air conditioning compressor. I replaced a valve, a metering valve in the compressor years ago. The engine has never been opened up except for the valve cover removed when I do the timing belts. I do all my own timing belts. This engine has to be done every 60,000 miles. The engines after the A4 style in 99 and on could go 90,000 miles. And it's the original master cylinder, brake master cylinder. That master cylinder and all the both calipers on the front, both wheel cylinders on the back, they're all original. They do not leak. The reason for that is because I flush the brake fluid once a year. I also do the same thing with the power steering once a year, which has allowed the power steering rack, which is original, to never ever leak, which is phenomenal. These, you just don't see a car that's this old and has this many miles that has a perfect power steering rack. I replaced the ball joints once and the outer tie rod ends once, only because the boots were torn on all of them, not because they were still stiff. They weren't worn at all. So that's been replaced. I've replaced the front struts and the back struts once, and I have a video on that. The battery, this takes a special, I think it's an 85 amp hour battery. They're kind of hard to find, but if you have one of these TDIs, they need an extra grunt to spin the starter over. I've replaced the starter a few times. This has got an actual new starter. It's not rebuilt. I've replaced both fans a couple of times. It's got the original radiator. I have replaced the hoses once and the thermostat. And I added this right here when I got the injection pump rebuilt. Now the story on this is, back at about 90,000 miles or so, somebody put gas in the car instead of diesel fuel and had it towed to the dealer, and it wasn't me. But they said, well, no, it's no problem. We'll drain the tank, we'll flush everything, change the filters, and it'll be fine. Well, mine was the first one that they had ever seen that it wouldn't make any pressure, so I had to get a rebuilt pump put on that. Now, when I was diagnosing the problem, if you go back and look at my videos, I had the car, it would not start. And it ended up being the timing gear that's on the right behind the harmonic balancer that was bad. But it was giving symptoms that the pump was bad, and the pump had almost 300,000 miles on it. So I sent the pump out to Triplet Diesel in Waco, Texas, and they're the official Bosch Volkswagen rebuilder for pumps. I believe they're the only one in the country that they're actually certified by Volkswagen to do that. And when they got the pump, the guy called me, and the actual builder that actually tore the pump apart, he said, "How many miles did you say this was on there?" And I said, "Well, almost 300,000. He said, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got records." He said, "There's absolutely no wear in this pump whatsoever." He said, "I also see that you're using some type of fuel additive, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, how do you know that?" And he says, "Well, the fuel additives will discolor some of the aluminum inside there. It's not a detriment to it, but it is a telltale sign." And he said, "What are you using?" And I told him, I said, "Well, most of its life it's had the AMSOIL diesel fuel modifier in there. Every time I do a fill up, I will put 3 ounces of that in there and motor on." And he said, "Well," he goes, "these pumps usually last about 150,000 miles before the veins in them start to wear." He said, "That's just what happens." And he said he's never seen a pump that's got that many miles on it that had no wear at all. He said everything in there stock, but since he's already ripped the whole thing apart, he's going to go ahead and rebuild it, put new veins and all that in it. And he said, "Just keep doing what you're doing." And I asked him, I said, "What do you guys recommend? What do you guys use?" And he said, "Well, they use Standardine." But he said, "If you're using the AMSOIL and it's given," he said, "I've never heard of the diesel fuel modifier," but he said, "Keep doing what you're doing." So the new owner, of course, hopefully will continue to add 3 ounces of that to the tank when they fill up. And you know, back years ago when they took the sulfur down from, I don't know, it was like 300 parts per million down to what they've got now, ultra low sulfur fuel, that grenaded a lot of pumps. And clearly the additive that I've been putting in there has made up for the lubrication, because sulfur is a lubricant for pumps and the valve stem seals and stuff like that. It's got the original vacuum pump on it. It's got the clutch. I replaced the clutch a couple years ago with a factory dual mass flywheel clutch. I have it's got the original axles on it. My boots were starting to had a little tear in them, so I removed the axles, and I took them to my friend who owns a CV shop, and he rebooted them, and he told me that these axles on the A3 Jettas are some of the best axles, constant velocity axles, that have ever been made. He said they're extremely durable. He also could tell that I didn't do a lot of you know, slalom course driving and heavy foot acceleration, because he said they are there was almost no wear in them at all. So he just rebooted them, repacked them, and he said they'll probably last indefinitely as long as there's grease in them. The turbocharger is the second turbocharger that's been on this car. At about 60,000 miles, I had an oil leak that they found. I don't remember what they were doing, but they had the turbo was replaced under warranty. And what's funny is that the original turbo, you could feel it when it kicked in, when you're driving. You could feel it spooling up, but you couldn't hear it. This turbo feels the exact same as the old turbo, but you can, if the windows are up and you don't have the radio on, you can hear a little bit of whistle. It's kind of nice if you're into that sort of thing. The trying to think of what else is of noteworthiness. You can go back and look at a lot of the different videos of different things I've done to it over the years. The tires that I used to use were the BF Goodrich Radial TA, Touring TA tires, which were phenomenal. I would get about 65,000 miles out of a set. They no longer make them, and I was getting them at Sam's, and they just didn't have them anymore, and so I had to switch to the Uniroyal Tiger Paw. These are really, really good tires. They're a little bit more expensive than the BF Goodrich's, but you know, they're every bit as good. But those things were phenomenal value. I think they were only like $36 a piece or something crazy like that. I believe these are like 50 something. The car has absolutely no rust at all on it. And I'm gonna let me open all the doors. All the places that apparently these cars get rust, just don't get rust. All original exhaust except for the catalytic converter. In my diagnoses, one of the things that I did was I took the cat off because it was given some of the symptoms were, you know, it could have been a clogged cat. Well, it was good that I took it off because it was about 80% clogged at 300 something thousand miles. And there, I just had a straight pipe put in there where it was. It still got the muffler and the resonator on it, but it made just such an awesome sound. You could hear that turbo spooling up really, really, really good. And there's the inflation specs. But it's got the original paint. The clear coat this year just started to slough off. Most of these cars, it only took a couple of years before the paint would start to get a little funky. And I've only seen, I think, one other white TDI. Most of my seen are either green or red. My dad actually had one of these cars. It was the GLS trim. He liked this one so much he bought one. His was silver with black interior. But yeah, the next owner is gonna have the car repainted. So it's gonna look really, really good. But for years and years, well, for the last 21 years, this car has been as shiny as a new one. And you guys can go back and look at a lot of my videos where I did detailing stuff, and it was very impressive how it looked. But yeah, it's this has been an awesome car. I am very fortunate that I bought it. I'm very glad I bought it. I think it was like $17,100 or so. I had the original window sticker, the original sales brochure, which I've given to the next owner, and of course all the paperwork and all that. But and the book. He wanted to make sure he got the book where I wrote every single fill up, everything that I've ever done to the car from day one to basically to the last time I got gas in it. I get about almost 600 miles out of a tank of fuel, and that's stop and go driving. So I don't really drive it on the highway anymore. Yeah, so yesterday I drove it, and that was the last time. And I told him, I said, well, obviously you own the car now. The transporter's coming to pick it up tomorrow, and so that was the last time I got to drive it, and it was nice. I enjoyed it. I'm going to be very sad to see the car go, but I am very, very happy that it's going to somebody that will take care of it, and hopefully have it go another, at least another 400,000 miles. I'd like to see him get to 700 or 800,000 with it. So yeah, if you go back on the channel and look, there's stuff like I rebuilt the shift box, not the transmission, but the actual shift box. I'm trying to think of what else I've done to it. That's pretty much it. The car is just, it's just taking normal maintenance. It's been the most reliable car I've ever done. And the key to these are making sure making sure you got your oil. Oh, one thing is I wanted to tell you guys that I dislike about the car is, and I'm going to show you guys, and shame on Volkswagen for this. This is the positive crankcase ventilation system. It basically takes vapors right here out of the crankcase where the valve cover is, and kind of recirculates it. It's supposed to, this disc is supposed to condense the oil, and it drains back into the block. This thing is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. These things leak, okay, and then they make a mess on the back of the engine. So I know that there are some companies like Raccor and stuff that make a system that will replace this and have it drain back, but come on. Chevrolet had a positive crankcase ventilation system on their V8 engines that was absolutely bulletproof. It was one vacuum line and a little rattle valve that fit in the valve cover. There's baffling underneath the valve cover so it wouldn't suck the oil out, and it worked perfectly. And they still use something similar to that now. But this is just unnecessary. And yeah, I hate this. I hate this little system, this puck. But anyway, other than that, this is, I think they really designed this engine well. It's very, very durable. It is a very robust engine, and I don't see why it can't go another 400, maybe 500,000 miles with proper care. So, yep, that's it. It's a classic A3. So anyway, I am going to go ahead and end this video here. I don't know what else to say. I am again, I'm very glad that the original the original stuff that I had I was able to give it to the owner, and yeah, hopefully he'll enjoy the car as much as I have for the next 20 years. And if you guys have any comments, if you got any stories, if you still have your Jetta Tdi or your Passat Tdi or one of those ones from the late 90s, write it down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. If you got a good story about yours that you had or whatever, yeah, leave me a comment. But anyway, guys, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next video.